Hi. Greetings,
Hey,
travelers.
greetings, travelers. Hey, how we all doing?
I like how you're saying that. This is for travelers who are listening to this on the podcast. We are starting to do a lot more live episodes. This one aired live, and then we'll air on the podcastiness, which is a technical term for podcasting. I've looked it up. I've checked it. So this is exciting. Mark, how's it going in your neck of the woods? This is going to air for our listeners on July 9th, but it's July 5th, so in advance.
So survived the madness of the 4th of July and ready to continue on. So
I'm would
excited.
You like to know my lesson I learned from 4th of July?
What is that?
My lesson I learned from 4th of July is no matter how sweet I am or how close I am to my dogs, they do not enjoy fireworks at all. So I learned that.
We had deer outside right as the fireworks went off, so they had a fun time. So
oh my gosh, I'm sure they did. And then I know it's super exciting who we have today, but we just have to remind everybody that we will be at Smoky Mountain Bigfoot, which I believe is on July 27th in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So if you want to come out and meet both Erica and Mark, we both will be at that particular event. So you can come out and see us, and there's some great panels and get to see a bunch of really cool Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah, and with the fun thunderstorm I have going on right now, this could be a very interesting episode. So,
we live on the edge here. So, Mark, why don't you introduce our pretty amazing guests today?
Well, these wonderful folks run a podcast that we have been fans of from the beginning, and even before the beginning. I followed these guys for some time. They do the Cryptids of the Corn.
Yes.
And we have been on their show a couple times and excited to be back with them. And now they're coming on our show finally. So we finally dragged them in, and I'm bringing them on right now. So, and how are you, Justin?
Good. How are you guys? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, all right. Fantastic.
So introduce yourself to the gangs at home. So
yes. So I'm one half of Cryptids of the Corn podcast. I am Justin, otherwise known as the Great and Powerful Mystery. Last name's England, so that's kind of the play on that. Jay is my co-host. He's not here. They had some family come in out of town last minute for the week. So they're having some family time. But yeah, Cryptids of the Corn podcast. You can find it on all your podcast platforms. You know, we have Patreon. We have the websites, cryptidsofcorn.com. Promotion. This is normally his part, and I'm always super bad at it.
So that sounds very familiar.
Yeah, it sounds uniquely familiar to me, just so you know.
That's how it works. I'm just letting you know it's just how it is when you do a podcast. But yeah, we have our own event coming up.
Yeah.
Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree. You can find that on Facebook under Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree or on our website, cryptidsofcorn.com. That is blown up to something bigger than we were ever hoping already. So we may have to move it into town. So look up on the Facebook page for updates. But it's at Jay's Family's Bowling Alley as of right now. We may have to move it into town because it's gotten a lot of popularity. But
wow.
That's pretty much us. We do our coffee, our Krypton coffee. Mark pops in there every once in a while.
I do my best.
When is the Ohio one?
So it's October 5th, the first weekend of October. So that's a pretty good time for Ohio. In our part, we're Northwest. So you're not really in the snow yet or cold yet, but you're out of the death heat.
Yeah.
September can be like, we normally have a couple more weeks of just like that 100-degree weather again. You know, it tries to throw up some more fits right before we get into the cold. So we found that last week of September, first week of October is a really good time here in Ohio. The end of October, we've ice fished on the end of October. So you don't want to be, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah. You guys couldn't make it. We talked about that off air.
Yeah, we're at another event that weekend. We're at Spookala in Tampa Bay that weekend, but otherwise we're here.
But no, because we get it kind of last minute. As you guys know, me and my wife were at Ron McDonald for 10 weeks, waiting on our twin. So that's what we originally had to cancel the original thing we were doing.
Congratulations.
Yeah, everybody's doing great. They're great. They're great, healthy babies. They put on 2.5 pounds in the first month.
Yay!
So, yeah, not bad for preemies. They're getting big. They're normal size now.
Hey,
That's exciting.
Yeah, we like to say we're a scientific and magical thing combined. Jay's definitely, if anybody meets us at conferences, Jay's wears the tinfoil hat. I wear a corn hat or a mushroom hat now, but I was a biologist. I did eDNA, endangered species surveys, mostly with fish and salamanders, but I did some mammal work and some bird work. And Jay runs a bowling alley, so you get all of that and more.
So what inspired you guys to come up with the podcast?
All right, that's an interesting story. So, long time ago, I like liquid libations, and
we have similarities there as well. Okay, continue.
Right here. Cheers. It's 4 o'clock where we are, but yeah. So, one of the only places we have in town to drink is the bowling alley that their family owns. So I knew Jay kinda before all this got rolling. Me and his grandpa, or my grandpa and his grandpa are very close, but he's 5 years older than me. So like all through school, we were pretty much offset. Like we never had, like we were never in high school together. We were never in junior high. He was always that kind of thing. So one night I'm pretty libated and I come up to him and I'm like, "Do you believe in Bigfoot?" Kind of half aggressively. And he's like, "Yeah, I do." And that's where it all started. Because you throw that out there just to kind of see how people react. We started a local group called the Hardin County Bigfoot Society. It's still around in some way, shape, or form. But due to scheduling and stuff, it ended up just being me and Jay going every week. And I would make this big pamphlet of stuff, and we'd have an hour's worth of stuff to talk about. Just me and Jay. So I'm like, let's just have it at my house then. And then at one point, I can't remember if it was Emily or Jay's like, "Oh, might as well record it so the other people can listen to it." And that's where the podcast was born.
That's a good way to do it.
I love that. I think, and that's kind of the genesis of where Eerie Travels was. It took me a couple of years of badgering Mark about the stories and like, you should do a podcast. And then when I finally figured out why he wasn't doing it, which is because he needed me to co-host, that was the entire reason he wasn't doing it, in my mind.
A co-host makes all the difference. It really does.
It really does. It really does. Because otherwise, it's just blabbering. And
people say this about our show a lot: is it's 90% me and 10% Jay, but it's not. I do a lot of the research and stuff like that. The second that Jay stops doing this, I'm done with it. Because it's the yin and yang thing. Jay doesn't do any of the research, but I would have no fun without him.
Yeah.
I don't do the research either. Let's be honest.
This is sounding very familiar there, Justin.
There are some bones to build a successful podcast.
Yes.
When you start shaking the bones up, they kind of look the same.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. There's more than a few out there that have this same pattern here. So, all right. So now we talked about the beginning there. So tell me one of your like memorable experiences from hosting, and it could be researching or anything like that. What's been the most memorable thing that stood out from all the time doing cryptids?
So two of the really cool things, I guess, from research and doing the podcast in particular with the podcast side of stuff is, I guess there's a couple. One big thing is the people we've got to meet and doing this stuff. Like I grew up watching Ron and the Finding Bigfoot guys on TV. And even the mountain monsters, I love them to death. You can say whatever you want about mountain monsters. They are good.
They're entertaining as hell, man. They're entertaining.
But they stop for every kid. Like Wild Bill's great. He does charity work that nobody ever talks about. He does so much charity. But they're great. Like, so meeting all these people, like hanging out. We've hung out with Ron Moorhead a lot. Like stories I can't share on air, but after hours parties and stuff like that. And Ron's great. I haven't really ran into a bad one in the bunch. So me doing this stuff and growing up watching these guys on TV, Lyle and Ken, we were just hanging out with, we were hanging out with Lyle and you guys last weekend.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. That was really good. Small Town Monsters. Poor Erica couldn't make it, but we had a blast.
But that's been a cool thing for me personally, growing up and like with the interest and seeing, Lyle on Monster Quest, 2000 and what some 6, 7, something like that.
Early days, yeah.
And now we hang out with them. We talk. We talk on the phone every once in a while, kind of deal. It's crazy. As far as research and stuff go for the podcast, there's been a couple things we've done that you never know where an episode or a topic's going to go. And a couple of them have taken on lives of their own for our show. The one big one, there's one of the big ones is the hyenas in North America. When we got a listener sent that in to us and just kind of said, his name's Sean. Hey, Sean, if you're listening, which I imagine he is, he kind of said, hey, I was, 12, 13 years old. Here's a little spot. I seen a hyena. And, no questions about it. Hyenas look very unique. It's not like seeing a bear, they look very unique.
They do not look like coyotes. No.
Right.
No.
They don't look like bears really either. And that's kind of the other thing that's their size, So he's like, yeah, I don't know if it'd ever be worth an episode or whatever, but if you ever get time, look into it. So I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll look into it. And I did. And it just absolutely exploded. There has been, and I kid you not, every state except Hawaii has had a multitude of hyena sightings. This took us to research of what hyenas just recently went extinct in North America. The North American hyena is almost identical to the spotted European hyena, which is almost identical to the living spotted hyena. They're the same species pretty much. Biologists argue those kind of things all the time. It's called specification. Biologists argue what is a species and what isn't a species.
Right.
So some guys would say that's one species. Modern day hyenas, for example, can live all the way up to the tundra in Russia. They can't live in the tundra, but they can live right up to that edge. The modern day species of hyena lived all over Europe, Afghanistan, into India, into the rainforest, into the plains of Mongolia. And people, whittle their numbers back to Africa. It's just kind of the last standing population. Same thing here with North America. So the first big thing was found out is hyenas are comfortable in all these habitats. They don't care. You see them, in the zoo in the savannah, they put them in the savannah habitats. Here's a little hint for you. They don't put them inside during the winter. And they're in habitats here in Ohio. So they're pretty comfortable. Another thing was we discovered with talking to some experts at zoos, and we present that information on the show, is behavior change was a big one. Hyenas, when you think of a hyena, you think of the laughing, the boisterous, these big goofballs. They're pretty aggressive predators too, but there's 30 or 40 of them. When you think of a hyena, you think of a group of hyenas.
Right.
So they have a complete flip in behaviors when there's only one or two of them. They almost become a big cat. They don't make any noise. They could become really, really reclusive. They scavenge a lot quieter. They hunt a lot quieter. So now we have an animal that is quite comfortable surviving in North America. And when there's only one or two of them, that's why you're not seeing them extremely often. Almost all the sightings, like we got flooded with sightings after we did the first one. And we did a documentary, and there's actually a mini documentary and then a part 2 to the documentary going to come out. Because just how many encounters we had, sent to us. It was insane. Of people like, here's where I seen my hyena. And we go on site where that's launch your documentaries. We go on site and talk to them and go to these spaces. They're almost always exclusively seen on the roadside. And most people believe they're harvesting carcasses. How many deer are hit in any state in North America? And that's just free food. And a hyena, they're famous for not caring about how rotten that carcass is. So
they're amazing scavengers. They're hands down.
Their digestive juices are some of the strongest on the planet. They'll swallow bones whole because they'll just break them down in their gut. We have problems passing a fish bone. So then we finally got the last kind of really cool piece to this puzzle, and I'm really watering it down for this, because it's like I said, we've done 3 episodes and 2 documentaries on it. Is that we found out hyenas were now. Have you ever seen when you could mail order animals out of like magazines?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have a famous story about my father ordering a monkey.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So this would be probably. I don't know how old your father is or was, but this
was in the 40s.
His dad's generation, the turn of the century, the 1900s. We found a lot of these newspaper articles where you could order lion cubs, tiger cubs, bears, bobcats, otters, all these animals, and one of them was hyena cubs. So through one of these companies we tracked down, they were ordering to the North America about 3,000 hyena cubs a year. So what's happening? Where are all these hyena cubs? Are they shooting them all once they get too big for a house pet? Because these people are treating them like dogs.
Yep.
And they get to be 150 pounds. They're at one time they're going to snap, and when they bite you, they'll bite through you. Their bite pressure is not like a dog. So we believe that a lot of these guys got pushed out. So 3,000 a year for 3 years in a row. So that's 9,000 hyena cubs. That's one magazine. Yep. Other magazines were doing it.
Other places were doing it all over. Yeah, exactly.
Including, Teddy Roosevelt. He had a pet hyena in the White House. His name was Bill. He carried him around on a chain, and he would use him to scare other dignitaries. And he was a gift from an African dignitary, and they gave him the worst hyena in the batch. But yeah, so that's kind of one thing that was like one of those things where you just do is you think it's real small because the first thing you think is escape pets, right?
Right, always. Or escape circus animals. That's always the.
But when we talk about the sheer number of sightings just turned into us, that's impossible. The amount of captive hyenas that are documented in this country there's not huge. It's not a humongous number. So if all these hyenas are getting out all the time, it'd be more of a pressing issue. And the second documentary, which is just being started, but we actually have, I can't talk fully about it, but a state biologist that has physical documentation or physical proof of hyenas in a national park.
Uh-oh.
And he came to us because he thought it was like a pet, like a local's hyena is running loose on the back of the 4,000 acres. And after hearing all of our stuff, he's more inclined to believe maybe it wasn't that. So we got some interesting stuff cooking on that. It's still growing, and we still get reports. So your listeners, if you got hyena reports, send them in.
Yeah, there you go, gang. All right, travelers, you heard the man. So get them off the Cryptid Corn, but send them to us too, because we want them now too.
Send these guys first, and then
CC.
Same. Because I was going to say, and if you see something you think is a hyena, try to grab a picture because it literally might be a hyena. Don't think you're like, oh, it's a weird dog.
And that Dogman connection too is, I'm sure you guys know, but for your listeners, a lot of the Dogman researchers have the 9 types of Dogman. Like they actually put up a little plan on like what Dogman did you see? And some of them are the more ape, like the baboon, like some of them are, the more werewolf of London type-esque things. Yep. One of them is always hyena.
Yeah.
So my big thought is they just seen a hyena. So a funky little thing in hyena biology is they can stand up. They stand up like bears.
Yeah.
So, unlike a bear, though, when you're looking dead at a bear, it's like a barrel. It's very like smooth. Their shoulders don't pop out like our shoulders. A hyena, they have like shoulders. So when they spy hop is what it's called, they look like a guy standing like this. And they're big. So if you're just walking around in a woods in Michigan and that thing pops up from around the corner, then stands up.
Yeah.
That's a dog man. That's a monster.
Or some of the church grim sightings, like the cemetery grims, the black dog folklore and stuff. We get that would fit that a lot. Valacrucis, the demon dog of Valacrucis, that would fit that 100%. So,
but then, like I said, that's one of those to me personally. It just, you never know where these things are going to go when we do this. When you guys do this, when we do this, you do an episode that. I loved the episode we did originally, but I thought it was done. The second it came out, we're moving on to other stuff. And then you open your email and you have 115 emails from all over the country.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, well, okay. And then, no, it's one of those amazing things. Hopefully I answered a question in some form in that.
That worked.
You did, but it's interesting you say that because we did one on Spearfinger recently.
Really?
And then right afterwards, and Mark, for, a book we're working on, but Mark went down this whole rabbit hole even further on Spearfinger. So now we're going to have to do another episode on Spearfinger because he found layers and layers and layers on Spearfinger. And so I always think it's interesting because you think, oh, this solves this thing. And every now and then you do get episodes where sometimes even the episode, you're like, this isn't even enough for an episode.
It happens. It happens.
You know?
You have to spread it out with 2 or 3 other related subjects, right there, as you know. So,
Yeah.
But,
if anybody's noticed, whenever we do like, what is it? Wet and Wild Monsters. It's just because it's like 3 or 4 little lake monsters or river monsters that had one sighting somewhere in the 1840s. It was cool, it was neat, but that's it.
Yep.
It's
that's that. My two toughest subjects to write on are lake monsters and ghosts, because it's always the creepy hand, the little child's laugh, the lady in white, and that's it. And you're like, okay, how many times can I type the same thing over and over and over when I'm writing the book?
I couldn't do what you guys do. I could not. We've been working on a book for 2 years now. That doesn't mean it's huge. It just means it's a book.
Yeah.
Pinky.
No,
I love Pinky.
Pinky lives. Yeah, we had a recent listener tale that says they spotted him. So it's
really?
Like, oh, yep.
That's one of my favorites. I've talked about that before. Is my family lives on the St. Johns River. I grew up on
there you go.
St. Johns River. Like I've been all up and down it. I think I told you that before about how I originally heard of Pinky was asking a bait shop guy about Bigfoot. And he's like, no, we never had Bigfoot, but we had a big pink sea monster in here one time.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
No, yeah, I love Pinky.
I still think it should be the St. Johns River monster, but Pinky works.
Pinky's a hard name to take away. I do agree. I love the St. Johns River monster.
Yeah.
Mark doesn't like when people name things dumb names. It irritates him.
It just
like the Florida Bigfoot is the skunk ape. Now I get it because of the smell, right? Because skunk, yeah. But he doesn't like the fact that Florida, for instance, and a lot of other places name things ridiculous names that are they're not even scary. Like Pinky is not scary, but if you think of the size of this creature, that's terrifying. That thing
never did anything.
Yeah, he almost sank a steamship in the 1800s. So that's at least something.
Purpose, or did they hit him?
No, he hit them. He hit them with that big hump on his back that might be a shell. We don't know. But I still think it was a manatee that did that, because I think Pinky gets a bad rap for that one.
See, Pinky's like the grafted monster, never did nothing.
Yeah.
Immediately people went out and were hunting the grafted monster down to murder it. And because he was sitting on the side of the road, he was just hitchhiking. Just a guy. No,
it seems like he was hitchhiking, that he lost parts of his suit by that point. Like
with a stupid name thing. I'm bad with tangents.
No, my worst favorite was the Barden Booger, because he's the Barden Booger. He's a skunk ape in the town of Barden, and he carries around a lantern. He's got the
hat, right?
Yeah, sometimes he has the hat. Sometimes he has a fishing rod instead of like catching a Bigfoot, catching like a bear catching fish. He has a fishing rod. And he's got a lantern because he can't see well. I'm like, this is my spirit animal. His tongue's always hanging out because it's Florida. It's hot. He's wearing a fur coat, and he should be the beast of Barden. Come on, that's like built for that, right? No, Barden Booger, and then in the 60s, he gets the Barden Booger Boogie. Come on, that's he gets a song.
Hey, he has a song.
All right,
I'll give him to say. We need to rise to having a song named after us.
I told you I was a biologist. So fish, for example, fish and aquatic animals are named one of two ways. No originality.
No.
And some examples of that are green-side darter. It's a little fish. Guess what? Its side's green.
Yep.
Iowa darter lives in the state of Iowa. Like a bunch. There's a whole handful of just 80% of fish are just that. Whatever. 90% is where they're from kind of deal. And then you have the other side, like a fat mucket, a Tommy Chog, and those are, a fish and mussel, but it just like, there's no middle ground. There's no like slight creativity where it's kind of fun with the name. It's like, it's green, it's striped, it's banded, or a fat mucket.
Yeah. It's like the red winged blackbird versus the, whatever you would call it scientifically.
Yeah. Well, those are common names too.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like but no, there's a little. But
I gotta ask. So you've been doing this for how long now?
This is year 3.
Okay. What is your favorite cryptid to talk about?
Ooh, to talk about. Now, that's either going to be living UFOs or the Trainees Alps giant salamander.
There you go.
Trainees Alps is one that I really think is still out there, but I don't think will be in 2 decades. I think they're right on the verge of extinction. So I specialized in salamanders when I did my work. So salamanders are always the first to go. Anytime, any kind of habitat disruption, and it's normally with reproductive rights. So what that means is like their reproductive sites are extremely sustainable or extremely vulnerable to man-made manipulation. So for giant salamanders, the Trainees Alps, which is in the middle of the Californian, like the Rockies, essentially, is the only mountain range in the northern hemisphere missing its giant salamander. Pretty much every other big mountain range in the northern hemisphere has its giant salamander. So the Trainees Alps, and you could say, some people at home will be like, well, what about Europe and stuff like that? Theirs just went extinct about 1,000 years ago. Yeah. You guys heard of the tassel worm?
Oh gosh, yeah.
What is that?
They called it like a cat snake was the way they described it,
right.
And most likely was the giant salamander they had locally. Was their best way of describing it, because some of these giant salamanders have whiskers, like a catfish.
Oh.
So this giant cat snake that they killed on site was probably their last remnants of the giant salamanders they had in the mountain ranges.
Yeah. Over here we've got the hellbenders in our area of the Smokies.
The hellbenders, and then there's the Ozark hellbender, which is in the Ozark Mountains. Hellbenders are the smallest of the giants, so they're cryptobranchia. So they're their own group inside of the giant salamanders, which are all across are called. Excuse me, I'm really burpy for some reason. Andreas salamanders, like Andre the Giant.
Yep.
They're named after him. So the giant Japanese, giant Chinese. So the giant Japanese is 2 species of salamander, and the giant Chinese is right now at 6. So they're all kinds of colors. They get 6-7 foot long. So a lot of the Trainees Alps giant salamander sightings were like that. Were like 6-7 foot long, seen up in the mountains in clean water. And the crazy thing about them is almost all of their middle part of their sightings were by herpetologists. So those are people that specialize in reptiles and amphibians. Mm-hmm. So when Joe Smo, and I'm not saying anything with these encounters because we use them on our show, you guys use them on your show, kind of, we all use those. But Joe Smo down by the river drinking in a boat sees some 6-foot animal, 7-foot animal swim by. And that's less credible to me personally than a famous herpetologist says he's seen a 6-foot long salamander in this lake. Because he's worked with 6-foot long salamanders. He knows what a 6-foot long salamander looks like. So when he says he's seen one, that's his career. That's not, us going down to the bar and yelling about it. So that's one of my favorite to talk about.
Wow.
I can tell that just from that there. But
I just looked up the tassel worm. I'm not even saying it correctly. This is adorable. It is a complete mistake how it's drawn. I can tell, and I can see why it would be something like a catfish or something, but they literally have drawn it to be like a cat worm.
A cat mermaid.
It's like literally a bobcat face, and it's adorable.
So they were poisonous. So the tassel worms were poisonous, highly poisonous, and all salamanders are poisonous.
Yeah.
So for example, like right now they're farming. So giant Chinese salamanders almost went extinct due to overhunting for food. You have to boil this thing for 2 days to eat it.
Yep.
if you have to boil something for 2 days to eat it, you don't eat it.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah.
It's that poisonous. Just like that's God saying, hey, this one's off the menu. And you're like, if I put it in this pot and leave it till Sunday, I can kind of eat it. But they started farming them. So the ones in the wild are bouncing back pretty strong, which is a good, one of the good things. But yeah, so the tassel worm, the Scandinavia, Northern Europe, was poisonous as well.
So, well, yeah, and that's where a lot of this. I mean, we talk. So many go extinct because, oh, hey, this is tasty, and look at the dodo, and it was one of the first comments in the books about it was how tasty it is, and how succulent. Oh, guess what? Now we ate them all. So
Charles Darwin did that to a Galapagos tortoise.
Yep.
They ate them all in the first day.
Yep. And then now we were talking about the hellbenders. They were doing a big presentation recently. We were at where they were talking about where people love to stack rocks.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's so bad. It takes away their breeding places. It takes away a lot of the flow and stuff.
Can I talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Before we go to break, go ahead.
I know. It's time. Mohican River in Ohio is me and my wife are going there on vacation here in a couple weeks. It's one of the last spots you can still see a hellbender in Ohio. Like there's just a couple isolated spots. I've caught them electrofishing when I did work for fisheries. Now the rock stacks, a lot of the problem is it's done by kids.
Yeah.
So if you just go up and knock those rock stacks down, you're upsetting a kid. They don't understand. I always try to make the point to explain it. And because I've seen on the river where people just go up and knock them down, they're doing the right thing. But you upsetting that kid or that family or whatever, they don't if you're not explaining to them why they shouldn't do that or why they should put them back. If you're going to move rocks, put them back when you're done. Kind of, you know what I mean? Then you're not accomplishing anything. You're just making more and more people upset because guess what they're going to do tomorrow? They're going to go in that river and make a bigger rock stack. There's my little PSA. If you're going to knock them down and the people are still there, just talk about it first.
Yeah.
99% of the times, I've never had anybody been like, oh, they've always just been like, oh, I don't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was bad. Of course we'll not do it. There you go. My little PSA.
Not 100%.
I love it. And with that, though, we're going to take a quick break on our podcast, not the live, and we'll be right back. We're right back. Okay, that was good enough. I
was going to put in the audio, but that's okay. Both there, both could have put in the audio.
The whole time. Audio. Like you gotta use the words because otherwise, I'd have no idea.
All right,
man. Okay,
next time.
I have a question about doing this for 3 years, right? And the fans, I would love for you to talk because we are always so thrilled with our travelers, right? Who absolutely share with us different stories. And that's been a huge thing to me of how much involvement the community has with what we're doing, because we do this because, Mark loves the folklore. I love the stories. I love the hauntings. I just said that. I lied. I don't. We all know that. Nope. What has it been like being with the fans and stuff in this? Because you guys started off, you literally sort of, at a bowling alley, but then in your house, and then went, we should record this. This is a great idea. I'm quite sure when you did that, you weren't like, we are going to make $1 billion, and this is the next best idea. You were like, we should just record this. So how'd that go with fans?
We're incredibly blessed. I'm going to be real blunt about that. Our whole first year, it took us a year to get, I think, our 500 downloads. And, we don't need to go, like, now we're, top of the charts on a lot of this stuff. And it's all, it's all because of them. We're blessed. We're blessed people share. We're blessed people wear the shirts and talk about us. Literally, with fans at conferences. That's the only reason we do conferences anymore, really, is it's a money sump for us. We don't sell t-shirts at them really anymore. I'm ordering some for the first time in a year, because we were speaking at one of the big ones. So I was like, I'll order some t-shirts, whatever. So every time we go to one, it's essentially a money sum. What we hopefully make it back on the back end kind of deal. Now we have so much fans, friends, whatever you want to call them, come up and hang out, and that to me makes me smile every time. So Monster Fest, first time I ever got to meet this guy. His name's Ron. We brought him and his kids, and right second Monster Fest opens up 9:00. He comes to our booth first. And he just says, "I love your show." Talks about all the stuff he's loved, all the stuff he's listened to, and it just melts my heart because, as us doing this, getting to the spot, I guess the hate likes to flow up to the top first, and it's such a minority. It's just a few really loud people. Like we got this guy, we're kind of picking on him right now on Spotify that comments on every episode something horrible and negative. Yeah. And we're just like, oh, he listened to the whole thing. What are you doing? Like, we got paid for that. Like, yeah, I mean, and for all the people on Spotify I don't know, is the creators get to approve and disapprove what ones get publicly viewed. He hasn't figured that out yet, even though we've said it on the show several times. So it's just like the fans have been amazing. The locals and non-locals, like we have people flying in from Australia for our little Bigfoot conference we're putting on. They've listened to our show. They've been trying to get us to go out there and do an Australian live show forever. And it's really just the flight. The flight there, it's just
that's brutal.
Really expensive to fly to. But yeah, so they're flying in for a $15 ticket to our little Bigfoot conference. It's been a blessing. It's been every time one of them comes up, and my favorite thing is we know a lot of them are pretty close now, over the years or so, Patreon groups grown. We have a pretty tight Discord Patreon group where they come on and like we hang out twice a month, whether it's talking about a movie or talking about, a cryptid thing or whatever. So we know those guys pretty tight. And a lot of those go to every conference. Nicole, here's your shout out for Nicole. She has definitely driven to the most conferences out of any of our listeners consistently. I count it.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Jake. That's one of ours.
Jake is our ride or die, Nicole. Jake is our Nicole. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. But you got those people that you just love. What we're getting to this point now, and it's weird for me and Jay, because we're just a couple of drunks from Ohio still. Like, mentally, you know what I mean? Like, we're just people. And we're speaking at some of the biggest conferences in the world.
Yeah.
But we're just like, it's never clicked over. And like, we had a line at one of them, and I felt bad for everybody. I just felt bad. Like, why are you waiting in line to meet us? Come back around or be here. Okay. But when we had one of the cool things I think about that experience was a guy we had never met. I never met him, never seen him. Is at Frogman this past year. Came in wearing one of our t-shirts. And he was telling people about how awesome our show was through the crowd.
Yep.
I'm like, I've never talked to this guy. I never gave him nothing. And it was awesome. And then, just hearing people, like we had one guy come up at a recent one just saying, all the people at my work listen to you guys. And I didn't know you were going to be here, but now I have to listen because they're going to be all mad that I met you at this conference. And I did, whatever. So it's one of the funnest, coolest parts of this. And I don't know if fans are the right word. Jay always says friends. We don't have fans. We have friends. Yeah. But it's crazy and it's so much fun. And I love every one of them because anybody that sits, we do 2 episodes a week on the main platform, so we do 2 hours at least. And then we have Patreon, which is another hour a week. So if you sit and listen to us for 2.5 hours, 3 hours a week, God bless you. Yep. And I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And what I love about you and some of the other shows that I feel like communityed with, I don't know what the right word, but almost kind of a partnership because, all of us helping each other helps each other like that,
Yes,
and people who listen, a lot of the people who talk to us are like, I listen on the way to work and back every week. Well, they're going to need a lot of podcasts because even your show, you're 2 a week, we're 2 a week. Like that's maybe 1 day or 2 days worth of travel for some people, and I love that how you're not that thing where sometimes we run into like you get nervous about meeting people that you're a fan of because we've all had those experiences meeting people that we're fans of, where regardless of their level of fame, and they don't react well, they're not real people and they're not fun to engage with. Where I love that this community as a whole, I feel you find the majority of people are very, very down to earth and are excited to meet you the way you're excited to meet them. You know,
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I don't know if it's just the cryptid or paranormal community or what, but there's only been the people that have been the negative way are definitely the outliers.
Yeah.
You know, and generally speaking, everybody's so nice. Like
the only ones we've had some issues with were, you know, the skeptics and stuff like that are like, I can't believe you're giving this credit and all this. And it's like, well, then don't listen. Yeah. There's
it's your point on you listen to our podcast.
Yeah, you listen. And
my big thing I say every week is I'm not forcing you to listen to this.
Right.
There's not a gun held to your head to press the play button. You can just leave.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people having fun with us. You know, there are plenty of people. You don't have to be one. That's fine. We never take ourselves too seriously either. And I think that's helped a lot too, is just, it's fun, right? We do it for fun, whether money comes or not. It's fun. We do it, you know, we're going to do it.
Well, I don't think any of us started this to go, you know what we should do? We should do this to make money.
No, nobody. Yeah.
Said no one who started a podcast ever, I hope, because that's not how this works. So
I can give you statistics. So we actually do a little program online where we kind of teach new people to podcasting, how it kind of works and what to do, and just skip, because we got a lot of help in the beginning, you know, from stuff like Hillbilly Horror Stories helped us a lot.
They helped us.
Yeah, I love those guys. They're the greatest. But they worked us through and walked us through how to do it and stuff like that. So we have one on Monday and we don't charge for them. We just if we get time, we'll be like, you know, I'll give you an hour out of the day and you make sure you write down all your podcast questions and we'll walk you through how to do it, kind of deal. But there's 4 million podcasts active in the US right now. Yeah. Less than 1% of 2% of that will ever make any money. That's the 500 downloads for anybody listening at home. Some insider baseball. Generally speaking, most hosting platforms will not let you apply any real sense of ads until you hit 500 downloads a week. But yeah, so there's the insider baseball for that. But just do it for fun. And then if you make money, you make money. If you don't, you don't. That's how you should do a podcast. You know, we've met people both ways that this is what I'm going to do for a living. Well, you don't know that yet.
Yeah.
You know, 3, 4, 5 years in,
you hope. Yeah.
Right? Just do it for fun. And then if it grows, it grows.
Yeah, right. I know. That's what I tell people. When people say to me, I want to do a podcast, the other thing I always tell them is that you need to pick a topic where you have longevity.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Because I've seen so many people start off with kind of like this idea, and they maybe have 20 episodes in mind, which may sound like a lot to somebody. But if you're going to do it at least once a week, like what we're talking about here, we go on twice a week. We're, 108 episodes. I can't do the math. The producer does
almost 180. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm talking about every year. Because if you a week, it's, what is that? 104, whatever. Yeah. Math is hard. And 150-ish total. I love that. Okay. But the whole point is that that's a lot of content. You can't just be like, I got this idea for 4 episodes. It's like, no, that's not going to work.
It'll burn up fast. So we found this out a long time ago, is that there's actually, it's open right now. There's a Word document on the drive that has 200 episode topics in there.
Yeah.
And that's how I pull it. I try to put 4 in between every Bigfoot episode. And that's for me. We're not a Bigfoot podcast. I love Bigfoot. We love talking about Bigfoot. We speak at the Bigfoot conferences, but we're not a Bigfoot podcast.
Right.
So I don't like them too close together. And, we like UFOs, but we're not a UFO podcast, so that's one thing helped us is just, you got to write 200 ideas down, because we have right now publicly 350-ish episodes, something stupid. And then in Patreon, there's like 150-ish. And we have crazy people that have listened to all of it and some of it twice. Like crazy. Have you guys, so you've been doing this for what, a year and a half?
Yeah, as a podcast, just over a year and a half. Yeah.
So have you had the Spotify review thing yet for your show?
Where the listeners get it? Yes. Yeah, we got that last Christmas.
Okay. Oh, yes. Sorry.
I cannot wait for you guys for this year.
Yeah, we're excited because last year we only had we didn't even start doing 2 episodes a week until demand was just crazy for it.
We're going to compete. I'm just telling you. We're going to have a friendly rivalry about it where we'll send t-shirts to each other or something. Which listener has the most?
Bring it on, as long as the contingency is that whatever t-shirt gets slung has to be worn by who's the receiver at the next convention they're at.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah.
I agree. You're going to get the baby girl one if it happens.
Done.
Great.
Because we had people that hit 68,000, 71,000, I think were our top 2.
Yeah.
How many minutes in a freaking year? I don't even know. I didn't know there was 71,000 minutes in a year.
Yeah, there was something crazy where we were starting to get the first overseas listeners.
Yeah.
And when we got the guys from Norway who were writing us about their lake monster.
I just got one from Sweden.
Yeah, that was like, what is this? And they're great. Those guys and they've emailed me a few times since because I'm trying to do a deep dive on it. I really want to investigate this thing, but it's
so
super hard to get information on it.
So we had to get a VPN type deal and switch our country to their country, and it became a lot easier. Whatever we were researching, whether it was in China or Asia in general, whatever, because the stuff you get is so watered down.
You know, I'm fine going over there for any of these.
Just pay, right?
I don't mind. I'll go. Just send me a list. I'll go investigate. I don't mind traveling. It'll be fine.
Scandinavia is gorgeous too.
Yes. Oh yeah. I went to Iceland and they were talking about the little people, and I'm dying to go back because I was on a boat with the boat captain. That's a tourist boat. Was like, oh yeah, no, I've seen them, and I'm like, not like some wizened old dude. This was like a 35-year-old man. Was
they're real. It's a different thing. Yes, but we do have really cute shirts. Baby Girl's probably the cutest. It's our squonk shirt, and I always call Jay Baby Girl. So a listener designed it.
Nice.
So anybody, So yes,
Baby Girl. We had a listener design one because somebody mentioned about Bigfoot only having 3 toes, which meant they were incestuous Bigfoot. So we joked about making a bluegrass band called Bigfoot Incest. And then somebody made a design shirt, and that was the first thing that got us kicked off Facebook for a few days because we posted that shirt to
incest. I can see that. I can see the algorithm because you're dealing with a machine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, the AI overlords were having absolutely none of that, but it was hysterical, and we really should make sure it's a Bigfoot incest. The other one was a sexually transmitted curse, the Rougarou.
I love it.
STC with the Rougarou.
Yep. Yep. All right. So now with all this said, what real experiences have you guys had over your years?
So Jay was molested by aliens. I say that. So that's kind of an ongoing joke on our show, is because we've done all these alien encounters and stuff like that. And like specifically with kids, like kids getting abducted. And Jay will be like, that happened to me. That happened to me. That happened to me. So there's a line in our intro saying, every time you open your mouth, I'm more and more convinced you're abducted by aliens. So, no, but Jay has had, it's one of those things where I think he's a good example of people that weren't quite into the paranormal yet and not realizing stuff they've encountered. Because he had a lot more haunting stuff growing up than he realized. Like he had the door open up and like hangers swing around and stuff like that. So literally a door in his closet open and hangers swing.
Wow.
But he never thought about it again. Like once that happened, it was done. And we were doing a show about his kids getting haunted. He's like, that happened to me. How weird is that? Yeah, because there's a demon in your closet. What do you mean? How weird is that? He's seen a version of the white thing. So the white thing's a big misnomer as far as the cryptid circles go. There's like 4 or 5 different phenomena being shoved under the white thing. So the one he's seen was the blur, this big white ball of fur. And actually, my dad had seen it in the same spot that he had seen it 3 days before. Same thing, or it was like the size of a big deer, but it was all he could see was fur, no head, no legs.
Yeah,
it wasn't really here. It was one of those things. My encounters, we don't have time tonight, but I had a 2-year version or encounter with Bigfoot, where I only seen it one time at the very end.
Wait a minute. Wait, pause for 1 second. A 2-year encounter where you only saw it at the end.
Basically, we had a lot of secondary and encounters with stuff getting moved, chickens getting stolen, like that, those kind of stuff.
Rock being thrown, the usual.
Kind of for 2 years until the very end of it, and then we seen it. Shadow people experiences. I had one really bad one. I thought I died one time. I can tell you that story.
Oh yes.
Right.
Okay.
Because I don't want to go wherever this happened. So do tell the story.
I'll ruin the ending for you. Everything's fine. I didn't die. No,
unless this is a very special episode of Eerie Travel.
I love the fact that you just said you didn't die, because if you had said, yeah, no, I died, I'd be like,
and I died that very day
ever.
And I've been dead since 2018.
You look fabulous.
Thank you. Working out. No. So when I was a biologist, I live in Ada, Ohio. I worked out of a city called Columbus, Ohio. It's the capital of Ohio. Yeah. It's like an hour and a half from me. Most of the time that wasn't a problem because we'd go get the truck and we'd drive. We worked all over the country. So like, let's say we're going to Illinois today. All we had to do is get to the office like 9 o'clock, get the truck, drive all day, and then we'd start work the next day. Every once in a great while, we'd have work here in our home state. And I'd have to be there at like 6 a.m. So I had to leave my house at like 4 a.m. So I'm driving. It's one of those days. I'm driving down a road called 30. It's 32, I think is what it is. So I'm driving down this road. It's not like it's a 2-lane road. It's a back road. But it's one of these routes to get all these like these workers into the Capitol. So it's a lot. There's like always a lot of cars, even if it's 3 or 4 in the morning. So in front of me, there's like a semi and a car, and then a couple cars behind me. I'm driving, and it's one of those days where I'm nodding off. And I wake up, you snap waking up driving, you nod off, snap, wake up driving, so tired. And then I nodded off, and then I snap, woke up, and it's sunny outside. It's as bright as day. I'm like, okay, I wrecked and died. Like, this is it. Like, I'm dead. I'm just waiting on what happens next. So I only drive for a couple more seconds, and the cars in front of me start pulling over. So I pull over, and I'm like, okay, we all died in a pileup. The semi wrecked. I slammed into the semi, and I don't know if a bus is coming to get. I don't know what's happening. I have my own religious beliefs, and I'm just thinking I'm waiting for somebody to kind of walk me on. Yeah. But it's not like sunlight either. It's hard to explain. You ever been around like pure white light? It's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the man in front of me gets out, and she's walking around this is like a busy road. And we're all walking around, and we're talking to each other and stuff like that. When nobody, like the sun's in the sky, like it's right, you can see the sun. And we're talking and talking. I don't know how long it actually was. To me, it felt, 10, 15 minutes, but it could have been a couple minutes. I have no idea. And then like a snap, lights go back out. It's pitch black again. We're all standing there confused. And eventually we all get back in our cars and get back, heading to work. I'm calling and freaking out. Before I finish the story, do you have any guesses?
Well, you're in Ohio, so I could say immediately something from Wright-Patterson flew overhead with bright lights.
Right idea, wrong place.
We're
really far from Wright-Pat, where that was.
I know, but they tend to go all over the state. They even
do.
go ahead in West Virginia. So
they do. They buzz over all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
All right.
Erica?
Aliens?
Another great guess. A transformer explosion. That's another good one too.
Yeah.
It was a meteorite burning up in the
Oh,
atmosphere.
Oh,
And it was a huge one. And it was burnt up and we didn't hear the boom. Or I swear we didn't hear the boom. I don't know any other people, but so I get to work and I'm freaking out. I'm panicked and all this stuff. And we go inside and we put on the TV and the early morning news is like local magnesium meteorite burn up over Columbus, Ohio today. Anybody outside and seen that great bright light? And I'm like, yeah. I kid you not, it was so eerie. Here's your Eerie Travels story.
That's
it. So eerie because it wasn't like sunlight, and that's I guess the hardest thing to explain. Is it's like welding light is the best way to explain it, but enough to light up everything. Like there wasn't shadows. Like it was like noon. It was high noon. It was so weird, and I thought I died. There you go.
well,
there you
I'm
go.
glad you're not dead.
Appreciate it.
I'm also glad you didn't get hit by that meteorite.
I don't know. I think that one landed in West Virginia because they all landed in West Virginia.
Yeah, it's like a magnet.
Now, there's something there you should probably look into with what you just said.
Well, I have to
definitely.
say, did you know that in Cambodia they had a huge meteor land, and huge is like 1 or 2 feet, right? Like, but there's people there that were worshiping it because it was a gift. So when the scientists came to try to extract said meteor, they were attacked.
They should be.
Yeah.
They're rock.
Yeah. So just in fun meteor stories, that's one of my favorite is that you just get these scientists that are like, I'm going to go explore this thing. And it's like,
now I worked a lot with scientists and we can talk about that. They're not bad people.
No,
they're not. I'm just saying they're on their way to go get this meteor. It's like, judge the audience.
They're socially awkward people.
Yep.
And a lot of times they're really bad about reading the room. And they'll be like, well, this is for science. And then they're taking your special worship rock and then they get stabbed.
Or your special Bigfoot print that your grandfather gave you, or some DNA that you spent days collecting. And you're like,
I did all the eDNA stuff.
Oh,
like that is probably I don't know how to say this phrases. The most misunderstood thing right now in Sasquatch is eDNA. And like I said, I know all the people on TV. I know all the shows. And a lot of times it's not the people that do the shows. It's the production company. And, they change stuff. They kind of mess with how you talk. And that, I've done a little bit of the film stuff. And they mess with that kind of things in the back end. So just because you hear your person on big or TV say this thing, that may have been a small chunk of a whole sentence of being like, this may not be Bigfoot DNA. And then all you get is, this is Bigfoot DNA.
Yes.
So with eDNA, like the real quick, I guess, the real quick of it is it's in its infancy. It's a very new version of science. It takes either a water, a soil, or an air sample and extrapolates all DNA sequences inside of it. So a team that I worked with were getting mammoth DNA in in Canada. And they were getting mammoth. And it was because there was a chunk of mammoth in the permafrost. Water was running over and getting DNA in it. They eventually found that. So eDNA has its flaws. It messes up. It's really bad with close to human things. And I mean primates.
Yep.
I don't know where you guys fall on Bigfoot. I don't know where the audience falls on Bigfoot. If you think Bigfoot is kind of related to us, that's a big problem for Bigfoot because you're going to get human contaminant is what it says. It kicks back human contaminant or inconclusive.
Yep.
The other side of it is you have to have a testing panel. So it's like imagine like a board of all the species. So it takes your sample and compares them to all those samples. If it doesn't find one that's in the comparison, it just says unknown species. If this board is only Ohio species and it's a Michigan species, then it is a known species. It just isn't on the board you're testing it against.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of problems with that, with these shows and those kind of things saying, look, it says undetermined species. Yes, because I don't know. And, you could say the board could have been just northern Colorado species. So if you get a Wyoming species in there, you can get a lot of funky stuff with that. It's very new. It's very infant. But I've heard it misquoted both sides. I've heard skeptics use it wrong. And I've heard Bigfoot researchers and cryptid researchers use it wrong. It's new. Nobody understands it, besides and I didn't do it in the lab. I collected eDNA. And you know how big of a stupid pain it is to collect that stuff? Like, you have to get it to a lab by 2:00, but you have to harvest it after the sun comes up. It's a lot. And just so anybody that knows that, do your own research for any of this stuff. Don't trust whatever you hear on TV, whether it's a skeptic or a believer. It doesn't matter. There can be misquoting. There's I like soapboxes, apparently.
That's good. No, I'm in the same boat. Being someone who's been on a few of those shows, I didn't even talk to the Ancient Aliens people, but an interview I did with a German show wound up truncated down to like 2 seconds on a Ancient Aliens episode. And it's like, oh, okay. Where I was like, there are these weird gravity wells that people say, but they're really just this, usually optical illusions and stuff. And that got edited to, there are these weird gravity wells.
And you sit there looking like an idiot.
Yep.
Been there, done that.
I think that's one thing that, and I have a separate question, but I think that's one thing, and the benefit to having shows like our podcasts and stuff is we talk about stuff, but we're not being edited by anybody but ourselves.
Right.
And that makes it, not saying that what we're saying is true. We always say preternatural. It's stuff we don't know what it is. People have experienced things or witnessed it or whatever, or science, which goes to it too. It's just, there's stuff that we just don't know what it is yet, right? But my question for you, talking about having, and I know we're running a little over our hour, but it doesn't matter because we're in charge of this. So my question for you is, being a biologist, right? That I feel like a lot of times lends a different eye to looking at the situations that you investigate or come across or things like that, because it's, I come at this as an author, all this other stuff like that. And then, Mark loves researching and the folklore and, but coming at it from science, right? Having gotten a degree in science, that I would think makes a different lens, is what I'm trying to ask,
I do think so personally. So I don't want to discredit anybody, because there's no reason, there's no such thing as a Bigfoot expert when we're talking about this stuff. So we're speaking at the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Festival, biggest one in the world now.
Yep.
Congratulations, B. She's the lady that puts it on. She's just crossed to be the biggest festival in the world for Bigfoot. And we're speaking at it. We're very honored. But we're doing the whole talk about the science behind the Sasquatch, where we take Sasquatch and we break it down as an endangered species biologist. So we're not proving anything. I'm not adding any new information to the pot, but we're breaking it down as if, if you just send it to an endangered species firm, you're like, this is an elk. You remove the word Bigfoot and you put something else in there, and we're breaking down all these big questions about where the bones are and that kind of stuff. But when we do these other, the weird one-off cryptids, here's a spoiler just for your show. We got a new t-shirt coming out that's all about out-of-place animals. That's one of the types of cryptids. So I know you guys know, but for your listeners at home, there's technically 3 definitions of cryptid. Cryptid is a biological term. It is not the modern day, the last decade and a half, creepypastas and the paranormal have gotten in the mix. I'm not saying anything about those. I love the paranormal also, but Slender Man or the Hat Man or the Shadow People are not cryptids.
No.
But they get lumped into these things now. Gray aliens get lumped into these things now. So the true definition of cryptid, real, super fast, is an undiscovered animal by science is the first one. Just an animal, Second one is an out-of-place animal. Right now, Michigan is having a big problem with emus that are becoming invasive. They're successfully breeding and hatching and keeping their young and surviving the winters. So just because you know what an emu is, if you're walking in Allegheny Forest in Michigan and you turn the corner and there's the emu, that's a dinosaur. You just seen a dinosaur. And then the third is an unextinct species. So those are Lazarus taxa. And we just did a whole big episode like 3 or 4 weeks ago as of this coming out about Lazarus taxa, stuff that you may not even realize is Lazarus taxa, like false killer whales are Lazarus taxa.
Yep.
They disappeared from the fossil record for about 1.5 million years. They were just rediscovered in the 1900s. And now you go see them in whale tours and stuff like that. So that's like a cryptid. So when we tackle a lot of the cryptid things, as you know, with the biological side of view, that's the 3 I go through first. And if anybody listens to our show, you'll hear that when we get to the explanations at the end. I don't flavor anything beforehand. The encounters, I read them verbatim. People pick on me for it. Whatever you send in or whatever we find, misspellings and all, I read it verbatim because I believe that's how it should be. Personally,
we get the same. We get the
Agreed.
same.
Because that's their encounter, not my encounter. I'm not changing it. So I want the listeners to have their own ideas before we get to the end. So we start with the very possible and we work to the very extreme kind of deal is how we do ours. And then I'm cheeky because I always keep the last one as whatever I believe it is. So that's how I do that. But there's a lot of stuff like bear cats. I'm trying to remember the story now. But there was a creature seen in Nevada in like parks. You know, you guys have seen a binturong, right? A bear cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. You know, anybody hasn't seen one. They smell like popcorn. Don't smell them. The popcorn smell is their urine that they rub into their fur. And people go and put their noses right in them. That is pee.
Yes.
But there was a binturong at a local park in Nevada that had been seen as a monster constantly. And people are describing it as this like giant raccoon monkey hybrid. And it's moving around and it's chasing kids and stuff like that. Because it was a hand-fed binturong. It was going up to these kids for food. And they'd run from it. And binturongs are the worst predators on the planet. They are technically carnivores. They're predators. They're not good at it. A binturong is not going to kill a kid. It would take I'm not saying like a baby. If a kid can walk, he can get away from a binturong. They don't have the drive. Like I've literally, you look up videos of them running like frogs, getting away, and you just see this big, slow thing. Like, but that's what, you know, it flavors a lot of it. And we talk about how animals are more surprising than you realize and how we compare that to cryptozoology and the paranormal. I have a friend that's a mountain cat researcher. She's out in Colorado and she tagged. So we talk about Bigfoot. How can a Bigfoot not be seen? You know, and all these people in national parks, they're around cities, they're around towns. So she tagged a mountain lion, big old female, put a radio collar on her. Never seen the cat again. She would get 30 feet from this cat. It has a radio collar on it. She knows where this cat is. Never seen it again.
Yep.
Because it got shot one time, and that was it. Took 6 months, battery died. They never got the collar off the cat. And she's like, well, that's when they actually stopped shooting adult cats for that survey. They only used juveniles because the juveniles are normally dumb enough to let them get a second shot off again. So that's just, and that's a cat's intelligence. So yeah, we all have different thoughts of what Bigfoot is. I always think Bigfoot's a manatee, but you know, where you want to put its intelligence, that can be all kinds of things. I think they're a little smarter.
Did you just say Bigfoot is a manatee?
Yes. On the intelligence scale, yeah.
No, biologically, a Bigfoot's a manatee.
Oh, what?
Oh, okay.
We're not allowed to talk about it. I'm sorry, the government.
All right. Yeah,
no, we can talk about it. It's a talking all thing. I always say. But no. So, how smart's a Bigfoot? So, yes, to answer your question in the longest form possible, I do think it flavors our way we do this a lot. But we never exclude the paranormal. We never exclude interdimensional. We never exclude extra-dimensional or purely spiritual things. You know, I believe in a lot of things, not just the scientific. I'm a Christian. Personally, that's what I believe. So I do believe in demons and spirits. I believe in ghosts. I believe they're not human spirits is my big thing. Whether they're pretending to be one or not is a whole different, bag of cats. I just don't believe a human soul can get stuck here in this plane. So I think you're going to move on whether you want to or not. I think it's more like a vacuum tube when you die. But I think there's plenty of things. I think there's elementals too, which are natural to this planet, which are what we would call spiritual or ethereal, but they may not be intelligent either. We've talked about that a lot, where you had like living wind and these air elementals. Essentially, they're just doing what they're doing, and they're more like a turtle than versus us, where a turtle's going to do whatever it's going to do. It just happens to be one that can make tornadoes.
Oh my God. I love that. Okay. We are definitely going to have you back on, because I want to go down the ghost rabbit hole with you. I want to have that debate, but I know we're out of time. Okay. Big plug one more time for your show and everything cool coming up.
Crypticorn Podcast. Find us on all podcast platforms, iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, all the small ones. We're on all of them. Crypticorn.com. You can find all of our information, everything from Patreon to the shop. We have tons and tons of cool merch, all that fun stuff. And then any events and stuff we're doing always end up on that there's an event board, there's community pages, all that fun stuff. We have Patreon. If you want to support us, if you feel like that's something you'd like to do, it's Patreon Crypticorn. It's you just look up Crypticorn on Patreon, you'll find us. And we do an episode every week on there. Plus a lot of bonus stuff, t-shirt giveaways, ticket giveaways. Anytime we're speaking, normally we get tickets to give away at these things. So we give them to the Patreon members first. Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree, October 5th, Ada, Ohio. Make sure you're there. You can find all the information at Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree on Facebook. Look there for updates if we have to move the location, because there's thousands of people coming, apparently. We were hoping for 500. So, that's going to be fun. But if you want extra information past that point, you can go to crypticorn.com, and there's a whole tab that just says Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree with all the speakers and all that fun stuff. We do our Cryptids and Coffee every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Be there. It's a lot of fun. Me and Jay just sit there and relax. These guys come on every once in a while. We just kind of talk about whatever. We spend an hour just hanging out. I think that's it.
Well, we'll get everything in the show notes down there for the links when the audio podcast airs and all that. And we'll transfer them here to the YouTube one after a while too. So, but wow, thanks Justin so much. It really was a blast having you on. So
thank you guys so much. Super honored. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, nope. And we're happy to come on, return the favor sometime if you need us.
Maybe that's what we'll do for the ghost.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes. Yes, please.
There we go. All right, gang. Thank you all so much for listening. Erica, words before I wrap it up?
No, I just want to hear your amazing exit, Mark.
Okay. Well, gang, thank you all so much for tuning in. This was our first impromptu live. We had a lot of fun with that. And for the few of you that joined us there, but it'll be available on July 9th on the podcast platform. So listen, for those listening in on that, you missed this live. You should have been here live. It was more fun. But anyway, all that said, thank you all so much. And when you're out there traveling, keep your eyes open, keep your eyes out for hyenas, and we'll see you on the other side.